Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 9th, 2023 regular meeting of the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors. Good to see those who are here, and maybe there'll be some folks out in YouTube land. As a usual custom, we have a moment of silence, and while observing our moment of silence this evening, or our moments of silence, I'd like for us to keep in mind the tragic situation of Saturday, July 15th, and the flash flooding in Upper Makefield Township that took the lives of 7 people. We're a community that helps each other in times of need, and though we have our disagreements, we really should be embracing each other when it's important to show our love and support. So I would like to read the names of those who were taken from us back then, and as I do, we would be followed by a moment of silence. First is Catherine Seeley. Two of her children, Matilda Maddie Shields and Conrad Shields. Enzo DiPiero and his wife Linda DiPiero. Yuko Love and Susan Barnhart. Thank you for your moment of silence. As I said to our first responders via email, and to the Lower Makefield Board of Supervisors, something like this can happen to any one of us at any time. And it's just important for us to strive in all we do to support and encourage each other. I say thanks to the Newtown Township Police Department and the Newtown Township Emergency Services Department for their assistance with Lower Makefield, or Upper Makefield, and their response to the tragedy. That said, would you please now join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, let me get back to my agenda. Mr. Lewis, are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
There are no changes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. No special actions. Bring us to our first round of public comment. Please state your name.
Yep. Bill DeSalvo. I was here last meeting, and I brought up 2 things about Route 413 Durham Road. So I had contacted Congressman Warren, and it got put on for next year. I'm trying to find out, it's on the PennDOT schedule. I'm trying to find out, look, when next year? Is it like beginning of the year, middle of the year? But at least we're on the plan, because before they had the year to go, the plan that went out to 2026, and it wasn't there. So that got put on. So that's good. That's a good now. Mm-hmm. Now, the other thing I mentioned last time was about the situation over at Delancey Court across the street. The fact that there was a inspection final inspection without the community being involved. So it was between Toll Brothers and the township. As it turned out, there are not so good conditions out there with the roads. I asked some people on the panel on the boards to go there and look at it, especially what's really bad is the parking lot and then the structural things on this one road called Alfred's Circle. So I thought, I'm waiting for the minutes. I guess the minutes don't get on the website until they're approved, because I was looking at the minutes to find out, if it's that information I provided would be in the minutes. So I'll wait for that to happen. So I still have that outstanding thing. I don't know if anybody's working on it to determine why it was done and can something be done about it. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you for your comment, and maybe we'll look into it.
You're welcome.
Good evening, I'm Terry Christensen. I reside at 67 Kirkwood Drive. I also serve as chair of the board of directors of Friends Village. I have taken the liberty of distributing a couple of photographs because, as I explained I'd like to be as judicious with your time as possible. And as I explained to Mr. Fisher, even a blind man can see that a picture's worth 1,000 words. So the first thing I want to talk about on my remarks are directed towards Lower Dolington Road Trail. On a number of occasions, I have heard this board make a commitment to pedestrian safety, and you've certainly taken some actions along Sycamore, contemplating some other actions. I'm concerned about the Lower Dolington Trail because the speed limit is still 35 miles an hour there. And you've got hills and curves and not great sight lines, and that just seems to me inconsistent with the plan for pedestrian safety. More particularly, I am concerned about the crosswalk near at Stanford Place, near our property, near the Friends Village campus. First photograph, the way I'm identifying this on the first one is, I can't see it now, but I could see it at home. It has a Country Bend sign over on the left. Excuse me, on the right edge of the paper. Crossing the street from our property, crossing Stanford Place from our property, used to be relatively easy because there was a ramp. There was a curb cut out. When we don't have any residents with wheelchairs, but we have a lot of them in walkers. And if you look at this picture closely towards the right center, towards the left center, you'll see that the fog line is very, very close to that curb cutout. The old curb that was very serviceable is not there anymore. So in effect, people from our campus have to walk into the traffic lane to get up on the curb. That makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. Looking at it from the other direction, it's an even better illustration. You've got maybe 18 inches there between the curb, and that's just, it's putting another barrier between our residents and the park. I also think you'd be well served to not have the sidewalk on the south side of that intersection, and I'll tell you why. In the 24 years I've been traveling with a guide dog, I've had 3 close calls. 2 of them have been in Newtown, and both of those were down on Silo Drive. I came down Silo Drive with my guide dog, ready to cross Sycamore Street. A driver comes down Silo Drive. They're looking to the left. They see a break in traffic. They want to turn into me. One case was not horrible. The drivers went around us, but the driver accelerated pretty quickly. My guide dog at the time, Twain's predecessor, Zane, pulled across me and actually spun me around so I was heading the other direction. So it'd be much safer if that crosswalk was located on the other side. Now, it seems to me that if it is where it is now, but cutting out eliminating that other ramp for Walker just seems to me to be wrong-headed. And I'm at a loss to explain why that happened. So I hope you'll consider making that change, because right now we've added another obstacle for our residents trying to get there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Christensen.
Can I just say that there's a number of different options, I think. I'd like to say something, if you don't mind.
I just want to keep it brief. We don't want to get into a big back and
We got
forth.
plenty of time. It's, summer. We can enjoy ourselves. I think there's a number of different options to solve your problem. So somehow, we need to get together and discuss what those options might be and what's allowable and not allowable. So I hope we can do that in the near future.
That's what I thought I was saying as well.
Oh, did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. All right. First round of public comment. Anyone else? Seeing, okay. We'll move on to reports of boards and commissions. We have the Planning Commission report.
Hi, good evening. Peggy Driscoll, Chair of the Newtown Township Planning Commission, here to give
evening,
you a
Peggy.
synopsis of our July 18th meeting. The first item on our agenda was land development for Harriet Beckert, a revised concept plan at 473 Lower Dolington Road. This revised plan for subdivision of a 10-acre parcel has been revised as recommended by our Planning Commission. The plan now shows 4 parcels. Lot 1 preserves the original farmhouse and its view shed as open space, and 3 new building lots. The plan shows 1 entrance to the parcel. The 3 new lots share a driveway or private road, and the original home retains its original parallel driveway. We recommend that the new access drive be widened to 25 feet. The Commission voted to recommend that the Board support this plan. 2 members disagreed with the recommendation. They felt that although the property is surrounded by R1 zoning, it is zoned CM, and as such will require some variance relief for lot size, setbacks, and disturbance of ag soils. These 2 members favored upholding the CM zoning. Next, we reviewed the revised zoning for the OLI zoning district. Bucks County Planning Commission presented a revised ordinance. It eliminates the overlay concept and instead includes the entire commons. The plan has new permitted uses added or expanded, including entertainment and tavern uses, expanded eating place uses, and some retail. The main change will be to develop a new use, mixed-use apartments. The apartments would be rental units of studio, 1 and 2 bedroom, limited to 20 units per acre. The mixed use would include some other permitted uses, either in the same building, but open to the public, or in a separate building on the same parcel. The buildings will be limited to 50 feet in height. The draft ordinance contains other performance standards like parking allocations for residential and commercial uses, setbacks, etc. The Planning Commission agreed that this proposal would address the changing business environment in the Newtown area and also provide housing for a younger demographic. We hope to review a final draft at our next meeting and will forward it to the Board for consideration. Once the Board has had input, we hope to present it to the jointure in September. And lastly, we had the Newtown Creek Coalition Bridge proposal. The Commission voted 7-1 to write a letter of support for the coalition for its application for a grant to build a pedestrian bridge over Newtown Creek from Frost Lane to Sycamore Street at Durham Road. The nay voter expressed concerns about costs if the project is not funded by grants. And that was all we had. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Driscoll. Any questions from anyone? Mr. Mack.
I have a question. I mean, the overlay was something that would not have required any input from the jointure, is that correct? If it were the overlay?
Correct, yeah.
And now,
The jointure does not have an LI district, it's only in Newtown Township.
No, hold on. I think there's a misunderstanding. if an overlay district is established, that's an amendment to the joint municipal zoning ordinance and would require jointure review and action.
Oh, okay, so I'm just not clear why the change was made from the overlay to what you got here, actual change, but I'll try to come to the next meeting and learn more about that.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to board member reports. I'll keep my report fairly brief. I attended, I and Ms. Snyder attended the Newtown Fire Authority meeting last Monday week ago, and they had a lot of discussion about fundraising. They have a fundraiser at the winery across the street, Rosebank Winery on September the 8th. And then the next day, they have Beer Fest, which is held at the Stocking Works, that's September 9th. So fundraising for the NFA. I attended a jointure meeting along with Ms. Snyder and Mr. Mack, and we discussed, and Mr. Schenkman, and we discussed at length the wireless communication ordinance, and that has to do with incorporating standards for 5G. Had a lengthy discussion. Then, lastly, a couple of us were on a tour of the Lower Dorlington Road Trail. And we walked the trail, looked at signs, looked at various questions about roadway, need for repairs of the roadway, and even talked about trees, tried to locate where the trees were planted along the trail. I would say that there were probably about 14, and Mr. Kessler or Ms. Schneider can correct me if I'm wrong, about 13 or 14 changes of stop signs or places where trees needed to be trimmed in order to have the stop signs be visible. Right now they're covered, so no one's having to deal with that issue, but before the trail is completely open and all the signage is unveiled, we will work on the visibility of probably about 13 or 14 signs, is what I counted. And also, many of the roadway repairs that were cited, and we did this walk with the residents from the area, and they had a nice spreadsheet, a punch list, if you will, of concerns, and many of the roadway concerns are going to be satisfied when we repave Lower Dorlington Road. That is on the schedule for repavement this year. And then we had a couple of questions about trees. We haven't located all the trees yet, but that's kind of where we are with that. And that's all I had. Mr. Mack, do you have anything to report?
Thank you. Yeah, about the trees, I did locate the fifth tree, which was kind of hidden underneath the bigger trees, and I don't quite understand how it's going to grow, as in that location. But in any case, there are 5 trees, so thanks for that. I understand, I think RVE was going to prepare a report based on that tour. Is that correct?
Yes, and what we went over with the residents and the supervisors that were there for the walk was kind of based on our punch list already generated for the contractor. So it was good to get feedback from some of the residents as well to either add to that or confirm that there are items that the contractor needs to address while it's completing the construction phase.
Okay, thanks. I also attended the JZC meeting and on August 3rd, and there was the discussion of a billboard ordinance, and I think Mr. Shankman was asking that right now, the way the ordinance is drawn up is there's only in Newtown on the bypass could there be billboards in a certain location near South Sycamore Street in the CC district, which is the, what is that? The Convenience Commercial District. And that district, there's no such district anywhere else in the jointure. Mr. Shankman was asking the other members to come up with areas in their townships where billboards are allowed, just to make it, you know, even, so that we all have to deal with that instead of just Newtown. The other item discussed was the comprehensive plan, which every township except Upper Makefield has sent in their comments to the Bucks County Planning Commission, and we couldn't get from Upper Makefield a timeline on when they might be able to do that. So you're looking at the comprehensive plan probably not being approved anytime before 2024, which means it's not a 10-year plan anymore. It's be a 15-year plan, because the last plan was in 2009. So it's just, you know, very, I guess, unfortunate that it's taking this long to get it through. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Secretary Treasurer.
Just a question for Mr. Matt. I mean, I don't know if you know this, in regards to that billboard ordinance, does it state that there has to be new billboards established or new locations? Because the only billboard I know in the jointure is on 413 in Wrightstown.
Right.
Is that included in this?
Well, that's, the billboards, I think, in the ordinance are larger size. And depending on the speed of the roadway, they can get larger and larger and larger. And of course, the bypass is 55 miles per hour, and so that's one of the larger signs and allowable in that region. So I think Mr. Shankman was asking for similar types of signage being allowed in the other townships, not just the small one on Route 413.
Right, and from what I remember, they made restrictions on if they could be lit in regards to illumination, I'm talking about, and those billboards that change. In other words, they have multiple advertisements. I thought there was an ordinance that was passed in the jointure that would prohibit such billboards to be established. So I mean,
maybe.
that old type of billboard is technically the only one that would be approved from what I remember. But I could be wrong. I mean, it's.
I mean, you may be true. Yeah.
And or attractive. It may not be attractive to have a billboard if those restrictions apply. And that would be okay with me. Anything else, John? No. Oh, and
Okay, as Mr. Fisher said, I attended the Fire Association meeting along with Mr. Fisher. I attended the Sewer Authority meeting yesterday. I also attended the joint zoning meeting in Wrightstown. And there is an Environmental Advisory Council meeting on Monday for anybody that wants to go. Also, the Lower Darlington Trail, I was pretty happy, and I think the residents were pretty happy, walking with the engineers, them answering every question we had, and the residents, every question they had. I thought it was a good job, and they know what needs to be fixed. They have a punch list, and I'm confident that they're on it because they were on it, and they knew every detail when we walked the trail. So, very happy about that. That's all.
it was kind of neat that the the punch list kind of matched. Mr. Calabro,
I have nothing to report.
thank you. Mr. Davis,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have the Park and Rec report. Pre-registered today for the following upcoming camps: archery camp, junior golf camp, Minecraft Lego-inspired engineering camps, comic book anatomy, and stop-motion animation. On other announcements, 6-week summer camps finished last week. We had 300 campers across 4 different camps. Check out newtownfun.com for camp pictures. Thank you to all the camp directors, counselors, and CITs for making this an amazing camp season. And the fall, winter, spring 2023-24 brochure should be mailed out around September 1st, so you can look for that in your mail. That's all I have. Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Davis. That brings us to public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We will open a public hearing to consider for enactment an amendment to the joint municipal zoning ordinance. I believe Wrightstown Township has enacted the ordinance, and it's Newtown's turn. I believe Upper Makefield will be considering it at their next meeting. This is an amendment to Use A4, which is a riding academy use. And what it does is it provides new governing regulations for the A4 use. It now requires that there be a 10-acre parcel. It requires that the number of parking spaces be limited to the number of attendees, and it requires the presence of the owner or full-time employee on the property, and last but not least, of great interest, it requires greater setbacks for manure storage. So with that, I would ask for a motion to enact ordinance number JZC 2020-03.
Do we have such a motion?
I'll make that.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? It did seem like the issues were parking, trailer
Parking,
car parking.
management, overseeing, and just the size of the use. Nothing less than 10 acres is required for the riding academy use.
Let's not forget the manure.
And manure storage and disposal shall be located no closer than 200 feet from any property line.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the, what is it that we're approving?
The riding academy amendment to
Right.
the joint
Is that- we have to
municipal
make that
zoning
change?
ordinance.
The Riding Academy Amendment. All those in favor of adopting that, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Reports of the engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
We have a few items on the agenda tonight. The first is the payment certificate number 1 for this year's Liquid Fuels Road Program. It's payment for work that's been completed to date, verified by our inspection team and our staff. The first payment is in the amount of $98,580.26. Of that amount, the Liquid Fuels Funds provides $52,645.70. So with that, the request is to approve the payment certificate number 1 for this year's road program.
Do we have such a motion? We have a motion, and do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further conversation from the board? Yes.
I just want,
Yes, please.
I don't know if you know this, sir, but what will our total funds be from the liquid fuels program?
Let me see if I have that number.
I know, while you're looking, I know we budgeted $555,000.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's what came in.
I didn't mean to throw you a curveball. Maybe the manager knows? Or-
Yeah, it's about 530,000 from the liquid fuels fund.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? We are proceeding with the road program. We've done some milling and curb work, I understand.
Yes.
Good. All right, any discussion from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the payment certificate number 1 for the road program, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. The second item we have for tonight is the payment certificate number 5, submitted for the Lower Dolington Road Multi-Use Trail. As discussed, this is still in the construction phase with punch list items that need to be addressed. This payment is for work that has been completed to date, which is in the amount for this particular payment of $347,798.33. This isn't a final payment by any means. There's still work left and payments that are being held until all items would be addressed. So tonight is the request for approval of payment certificate number 5.
Have a motion or a second? I'll second it. A motion and a second. Do we have any discussion from the board?
One small thing, it says there's $17,813.40 being held for 2% retainage. Can you explain what that means, what that's about?
Sure thing. When payments are released under the contract, when the payments are made along the way during construction, the percentage is held for retainage that accumulates towards the end of the project. So while the items are listed as a specific price in the contract, until all the work is complete, there is a retainage held. That way, when they get to the final item, it doesn't just hit 0. There's still a time there where everything's confirmed that it's to the satisfaction of the township.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And that 17,000, when looking at the math, it looked like it was towards the total contract work completed. It was 2% of that, it looks like it.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion and a second. We've had this. Any other questions from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of paying the payment certificate number 5 for the Lower Dolington Multi-Use Trail, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
All right, thank you. Our third item is a planning module, a resolution for approval. This is for 101 Pheasant Run, the Mediplex. And just for the familiarity of everyone, the planning modules are for sewer connections. Their forms are reviewed for capacity. They have letters of support for where they're making the connections, and it requires a board resolution to have the township's confirmation of that as well.
So do we have a motion for the planning module resolution?
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions from the board? This is a connection that's already been made. Is that how it works? or-
It's a proposed connection.
Okay.
And yeah, this would be one of the forms they need to submit to the DEP with their additional forms to
Okay.
verify they're allowed to do so.
Okay. Any other questions? Any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of granting the planning module resolution for Mediplex, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. Our next item, the next three, I should say, are are maintenance and project closeout items. These are projects that have been around for quite a bit of time. So they date back to CKS engineers' review of the sites, and their recommendations are what's included with the packet tonight. We're happy to provide these letters for these sites. The first of which is for the Newtown Athletic Club, and this is for the release of the maintenance period security. So the work has been done. They were in their maintenance period, just to have that time to see if there's any trees that need replaced, things of maintenance nature for the site. That time has elapsed, and the recommendation now is to release the maintenance period and close that out with the developer.
Okay, do we have a motion to release the maintenance security for Newtown Athletic Club? Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, got a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second. Motion and a second, good. Any discussion from the board?
I'm under the impression that they removed some trees and they promised that they would submit some money to a tree fund that the Parks Department can use to plant new trees in other locations. Is that part of this or not? The security, or have they done that?
No, that was part of a previous agreement. They did provide that money. That's not part of this release.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Kessler's coming in the first meeting, so you may not be aware of all those
No, that's quite all right. I appreciate
other conditions.
Mr. Lewis's assistance there.
I just want to make sure that I read this correctly. The grading work has been done, has been completed.
They have the recommendation basically saying that the site work that was part of the development has been completed. There's grading work that was identified or has been identified that would be part of grading permits for individual lots.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's a little murky, the paragraph there, but in short, that's what they're saying.
And that's right, this is from CKS, so.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
All right, very good. Any other questions from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, all those, call the question, all those in favor of releasing the maintenance security for Newtown Athletic Club, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Good, no.
Thank you. Yes, the next item for Goodnoe Elementary School, this is a certificate of completion number 2, which would be their final amount for completion of the work at the site. It's in the amount of $100,926.54 rather. This would be a final payment for the work at that site. Was reviewed and is before the board for that final approval. Just to point out, with this site, there isn't a maintenance period being required, so this would be a closeout of the project.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the certificate of completion?
So moved.
We have a motion, who,
I'll second.
yeah, Mr. Mack will be the second, okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions for our professionals about the Goodnoe Elementary School? This one goes back to, did I read 2013 somewhere? Yeah.
Can I just ask why it was 2013 and now it's 2023 and we're just getting around to that?
It's because they didn't complete the punch list items that CKS had put forth as part of the development agreement in 10 years. And now they've completed it, so.
And we're purposefully trying to clean up some of these situations. So, any other questions from the board? Any from the public? Please come to the microphone.
to know that if the items he just mentioned, are they in the budget? Just a matter of you approving?
These aren't budgeted items, these are things, this is money that I believe, have in escrow.
Correct, yes, for land developments, when they go into their land development agreements, they set up an escrow or financial security for the construction. So it's not actually township money being spent on the land developments, it's through the developer, and then they request release from the security that they have as the project goes along.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the certificate of completion number 2 final for Goodnoe Elementary School, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And there's one more.
All right, the final one we have listed for tonight is also a request for a certificate of completion number 2, a final payment, and this is for 671 Newtown Yardley Road. The site, as with the others, has been around for quite a bit. The site was confirmed that all the items have been satisfactorily completed, and the request is that this final release be made. As with the one previous, the maintenance security is no longer being required. I think at this point the site has been complete to satisfaction for quite a bit, so this is more of a closeout item.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
$86,246.58 is what they have for the final payment.
That's what it is. Yep. Now I could ask for a motion. Okay, got a motion. You have a second? Second. Okay, got a motion and a second. Any other questions from the board? This is not quite as long as Goodnoe. This is 2015.
That's right.
But again, closeout items, and that's a good thing. We're getting some things squared away. Any comments from the public on this? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the certificate of completion number 2 final for Magliotti and Kroll, 671 Newtown Yardley Road, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
That brings us to the manager's report. Yes, thank you, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. General fund balance as of this evening is $7,684,925. Planned expirations before the board with no action required. And we have Chief Hearn to give us monthly chief report, police report. Hey, Chief.
Yes.
Good evening, board members. July 2023 police report, we documented 1,833 calls for service. We logged 22,576 patrol miles on the fleet. We had 3 arrests for the month of July, including 1 theft, 1 corruption of a minor regarding a computer, and 1 DUI. There were 9 cases referred to detectives, including the commercial burglary, multiple frauds, a couple theft from autos at Roberts Ridge Park, a death investigation, and an assist another agency for a mass casualty incident. We had 70 car crashes, 13 reportable, 29 non-reportable, 14 deer collisions. There were 161 traffic citations issued, 244 warnings issued. We activated the Truck Enforcement Task Force on 2 locations, totaling 21 truck inspections, 4 citations, 13 warnings. 2 vehicles and 2 drivers were placed out of service. For the month of July, we had 3 significant events. One on July 6th, if you recall, we had a local contractor who was sentenced to 50 years in state prison for indecent assault on an 11-year-old child from the township. Our lead investigator, Corporal Joe Camp, and Deputy District Attorney Sarah Heimbach did an extraordinary job in the prosecution of this gentleman. On July 10th, we had a report of a small plane crash at the Newtown Middle School. It was not a small plane. It was a motorized hang glider. Male suffered minor injuries, was transported to St. Mary's and released. And finally, on July 15th, as the chairman mentioned earlier, we had this severe weather event in Newtown, Upper Makefield region. Our personnel resources were immediately dispatched to the scene. Command personnel responded and assisted the efforts. 10 persons were rescued. 11 cars were trapped, as well as a motorcycle. 7 fatalities were reported, including a 9-month-old Conrad, who was still unaccounted for. 6 of the victims and their families lived in our jurisdiction. So I'm extremely proud of the efforts by our emergency personnel, and please keep those families that lost loved ones in your thoughts and prayers. Emergency declaration was signed by the township in an attempt to recoup personnel and equipment costs via the state. That is still pending. Public service announcements. We have a seasonal part-time employment opportunity for a school crossing guard. So if you have anybody that's interested, please have them submit a letter of interest and application to the police department. The Grange Fair is August 16th to the 20th at the Grange Fairgrounds on Penns Park Road. There will be increased traffic in the area, and our officers will be on location, so stop by and meet our officers. And finally, on September 23rd, we have a Cars, Cops, and Coffee event, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Veterans Park. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the chief?
Chief, I would just like to thank you and our whole force for what you guys aided Upper Makefield, the job that you did. You know, the whole thing it makes one speechless. The loss of life so close to home, and thank you very much, and please convey that to everybody, the way
Thank you.
that we feel about you guys.
Thank you.
I also attended one of the memorial services, and in attendance were a number of Board of Supervisors members from Upper Makefield, and they were very appreciative and acknowledged the help that Newtown gave them, and were very appreciative. So thanks. Thanks again. Any other questions for the chief?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one other item on our report for the board's consideration. Please recall that we had issued an RFP for proposals for an architectural study for the police facility. We did receive 2 proposals from 2 qualified firms. We had allocated $20,000 under the capital plan in the 2023 budget. The first quote that we got was for $24,500, and the second was for $14,680. So with that being said, the appropriate motion would be consideration or authorization to approve the proposal from KCBA Architects in the amount of $14,680 for the police building study.
Would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions for the manager about the police building study funding?
Just one quick question. There was a $10,000 differential between the 2 proposals?
That's correct.
And I'm assuming they were all apples to apples in regards to what they want to do. Is there any reason why there was such a wide spread? I mean,
No, I can ask that question, but I don't have.
yeah, I mean, a $10,000 difference. I just want to make sure who we're, appointing to do this is going to perform the proper duties to take care of what we want done, and they're comparable to the other company, unless the other company just wanted to bid high. Some want to bid high just because they don't want the job.
Both of them met the requirements of the RFP.
Okay.
What we were asking of them. The One gave a $10,000 credit towards the architectural design of the building in the future. One doesn't.
That's what I was going to bring up, was that special offer kind of brings it back down some. And I'm guessing maybe some of our staff or professionals have had experience with each of these firms as well. Okay, all right, we have a motion and a second, right? Any other discussion from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the proposal from KCBA Architects in the amount of $14,680 for the police building study, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
That's all I have under my report, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Manager. Minutes, bills list, reports, Ms. Snyder.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from our July 12th work session discussing the AV system upgrade.
We have a motion. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second.
Okay. Mr. Calabro, I'm looking your way, so you're the second. Any questions from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the July 12th, 2023 work session, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I'll abstain. I was not
Abstain.
present. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for our regular July 12th Board of Supervisors meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Mack, would you like to make the second this time?
Okay.
All right, okay. Even it out. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Any from the public?
When are the minutes going to go? When are the minutes going to be put on the website?
Mr. Manager, how's that done? Is it after they're approved?
By the end of the week, once they're signed.
Thank you.
And we'll be signing them tonight, at least a couple of us. Okay. Do we vote on that? We have a motion and a second, and we had discussion. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the regular meeting for July 12th, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 4-1 with one abstention.
I'd like to make a motion to pay our bills. We'll start with the prepaid bills list in the amount of $121,573.17.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of paying our bills, the prepaid bills is listed on the July 26th bills list, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-1.
Again, our prepaid bills list, I'd like to make a motion to approve the total of our intra and inter-fund transfers in the amount of $305,000.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of paying the interfund transfers for the July 26, 2023 bills list, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
I'd like to make a motion to approve our current bills list in the amount of $1,309,557.93.
I have a motion. Do we have a second? I'll second it. I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion from the board?
Can I ask a question about one or two payments? On page 1, we got Barry Isit and Associates, Inc., They're charging us $95,765.40 for 3 months of zoning officer service. And I did the math, and that works out to $383,000 on a yearly basis. I know we hired outside consultants, but that seems like an exorbitant amount of money. And I'm wondering, are we looking for any full-time person to take that over at a much lower annual salary?
No, that is also for building inspection services that are offset by the fees that we collect. So
Okay.
this is for 3 months of building and zoning enforcement.
So that's an unusual amount, monthly amount?
Nope.
Well, I'm not getting what you're saying.
It's about $30,000 a month for building inspection and for zoning
And
services.
we've always paid this kind of...
It's about that much, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And it's offset by the fees that we charge, at least in part,
Good point.
yeah. Okay, so was there another question?
Well, I just had a minor question about page 15, Brandywine directional, blah, 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 drainage basin service materials, $18,000 something dollars. I didn't know what this was for, but I received a complaint from somebody about a sinkhole that needed to be repaired, and I'm wondering if that's what this materials are going to be used for. It's a sinkhole around a drainage basin where there's a drainage pipe.
No, this is for the villas at Newtown.
The villas in Newtown?
For the basin reconstruction work.
I get it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so any questions from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of, and we're doing the regular bills list. The regular bills list for August 9th, 2023. All those in favor of paying our bills, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
Finally, I'd like to make a motion to approve our intra and interfund transfers in the amount of $371,578.01.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Any from the public? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of paying our interfund transfers as listed on the August 9th, 2023 bills list, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, that brings us to our second round of public comment. Is there any public comment? Going once, going twice here, just...
John April, Newtown Grant. Last meeting, we have an ongoing thing with it, but they brought up a supervisor's use of social media. Now, social media in a lot of businesses and even Philadelphia Police and other police departments in the country, people lost their jobs over them because they said the wrong thing and everything. But it's one thing you got to remember, you got to do don't let your mouth overload your rear end. Say it nicer, engage your brain before you open your mouth. Now, stranger things have happened. Township has lost cases because of stupid things. And, I just say, if this happens, the guy ought to leave town, resign, leave town, pack up, go back to Brooklyn. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any others? All right. Seeing none, do we have any old business? I was just going to mention, we did the Riding Academy this evening. There's a couple other jointure ordinances that will be coming down the pike in the next couple of months. Yep. And Mr. Sander, would you like to tell us about the executive session that we had this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We'll note for the record that the board met in executive session to discuss matters of litigation concerning the KRE curative amendment and other threatened litigation.
Thank you. That was old business and a new business. Seeing none. Without objection, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much.